We will totally eliminate the penalty on returning future earnings back to the United States, and we will impose a one-time low tax on money currently parked overseas so it can be brought back home to America where it belongs and where it can do its job.
You heard it right there. That's President Trump last night in Pennsylvania calling for a one-time, I'm going to call it a tax holiday. Joining us now, Gary Cohn, National Economic Council Director. So welcome back to the show. Always good to see you, Gary.
Great to be here, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Have I got it right? A tax holiday, a one-time low tax rate just on the money that's already overseas? What kind of tax rate are we talking about?
So, Stuart, you just played the clip from the president's speech in Harrisburg yesterday where he delivered that. Look, when we transition from a worldwide system to a territorial system, we've got to catch up for the money that hasn't been brought back. So what the president was talking about last night, which is something very important, it's a catch up for the money that's still offshore. So the president is going to force companies to bring that money back to the United States so it can be spent and invested in the United States. Now and that's very important to our tax plan.
Absolutely it is, because you're talking about a very short window and a very, very low tax rate. What would that tax rate be? 5%, 10%, or 0%?
Look, as you know, we've given the tax writers a lot of latitude on determining the absolute number there. It'll probably be two different rates. There'll be one rate for liquid assets or cash, and there'll be a separate rate for investments that people have made bricks and mortar. But it's going to be, a rate that's enticing to bring it back, but also brings in a lot of money for the American citizens.
And after that, it's a 20% corporate tax rate, correct?
Correct.
And how much of the $2.5 trillion that we have parked overseas now, how much of that can you realistically think is going to come back here?
Well, Stuart, it's all coming back because we're going to deem it. In the rules that we're writing, we're going to force you to pay the tax on it, whether you bring it back or not. We're going to have deemed that you had brought it back.
Whoa, that's kind of strong-arm tactics, Mr. Cohn, isn't it?
Well, we were leveling the playing field. We're going from a worldwide system to a territorial system. We've got to level the playing field, and you only get one chance to do it. We've talked to a lot of the business community. They think it's a fair alternative.
I got to talk to you about paying for itself. You're going to cut taxes, got it. But you don't want to raise the deficit. Got it. And you say that you can pay for itself. You'll grow so much that you'll bring in extra revenue to the Treasury. I caught Treasury Secretary Mnuchin this morning saying that if you raise our economic growth rate just 0.3 or 0.4%, then everything is paid for. That's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? That sounds very optimistic.
Well, Stuart, look, the Secretary and I have spent an enormous amount of time talking about this, going through the reality. We know what a 1% growth does to GDP. We know that's about $3 trillion. So if people are scoring this as a $1.5 trillion deficit, 0.5% will pay for it. Anything more than 0.5% will more than pay for it. But then you're not talking about the additional job growth, and the jobs will come into the system, and the wage growth and all of the other ancillary benefits. So I think the Secretary is exactly right. We get a little bit of economic growth here. This tax system will more than pay for itself.
The president said last night that this plan would put an extra $4,000 into the pockets of middle-class families. Where's that come from?
So, Stuart, when you lower the corporate tax rate and you lower the business tax rate on the pass-throughs, businesses have more earnings. Where does that earnings go? We've done an enormous amount of work on this. The Council of Economic Advisors has done work. Labor tends to get about 70% of that earnings. So you take the money that's not being sent to the government and you give it to the employees. That ends up being about $4,000 per worker in the United States.
Are you going to guarantee, sir, that by the end of the year you've got 50 votes in the Senate and 218 votes in the House for a tax cut package?
Stuart, we're committed to be here 7 days a week, 24 hours a day to get this done.
Well done, sir. Gary Cohn, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us, sir. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.